I look at the Ravens and I see a team that has had their struggles, but they have a favorable end to the year playing Jacksonville, Houston, and Cleveland, 3 teams that have been anything but strong this year. The Browns right now having an identity crisis. The Pittsburgh Steelers, they will have a tough schedule, I guess. They're going to Atlanta, they're going to play Kansas City, and they're going to host Cincinnati. So those are 3 games that are tough games for them. And then, of course, Cincinnati will get Pittsburgh at least once more. They will play away in Cleveland, and they have Denver. So I think Baltimore is primed to win that division. And at the end of the day, I think New England takes home the 1 seed.
Really? Because I'm looking at it right now. I see Denver finishing up at 12-4. I see New England finishing up at 12-4 as well. That would lead New England to win due to the tiebreaker, because they beat those Broncos earlier this season in New England. And then at number 3, I see Indy really finishing strong right now. I think they'll go 11-5. They're bound to lose another game. Good performance though today. At number 4, I really don't trust Cincinnati down the stretch. But also, Pittsburgh is one of the most erratic teams. You never know what you're going to get, but they would be a dangerous team come playoff time.
Yeah.
You look at their schedule, and it's pretty favorable due to the fact that they're playing 2 possible playoff teams down the stretch, Kansas City and Cincinnati. I think they'll show up to play in those games. But what you have to be worried about being a Pittsburgh fan is that game next week at Atlanta, a team that right now is in the playoffs but really shouldn't be if you think about it. Record-wise, they're a losing record team, but they're slotted to be the number 4 seed in NFC. That would be the game that they could drop. And then I see them finishing the other 2 games, going 10-6 on the season. You look at Baltimore's schedule, on the other hand. Both these teams tied 1-1 in the season series. Baltimore has to play at Houston, and then I think they'll win versus Jacksonville and win versus Cleveland. So both of them are going to finish 10-6, and I'm not sure who wins the tiebreaker. Do you know what would happen if they both won?
I believe it would go down to division record, which at this point...
Baltimore would win that one.
I believe so. Let's see right here. Right now, Baltimore is 2-3. Pittsburgh is 3-2. If Pittsburgh were to win their next 2 games, Pittsburgh would take the tiebreaker.
Yeah, so due to that, I'm going to go with Pittsburgh at number 4, and they'd be a really dangerous team, like I said, come playoff time. And I think they'd be slotted up against a number 6 seeded Baltimore team. I'm going to take Pittsburgh at home versus Baltimore. It really seems to come down, whatever time these 2 teams match up, it's always the home team that seems to come up with the victory. And right now, it's just a battle at the number 5 spot between San Diego and Kansas City, I think.
Okay.
But we'll have to see. Okay, with that being said, next topic is going to be MVP discussion in the NFL. Right now it seems to be all offensive guys, but got to give some love to J.J. Watt. I mean, if he were a quarterback, I read something, he'd be putting up numbers like 7,100 yards passing and 70 touchdowns, but he's a defensive player. But his numbers have been absolutely outstanding this season. I mean, the guy has scored I believe it's been 4 touchdowns. He's a defensive player who plays defensive end on the Houston Texans. I mean, you definitely have to consider him for MVP. Also, Rob Gronkowski, another guy who doesn't get as much credit because he's a tight end, but he's been up there with some of the best wide receivers in the league this season on a consistent basis of putting up touchdowns and big yards receiving numbers. But then you have the big 3 front runners, and that's Aaron Rodgers. That's also Tom Brady and Peyton Manning. We're always hearing about every single year. Those 2 guys who just never seem to call it quits. Always outstanding season. But Noah, who do you think has been the MVP thus far up to this point?
Well, if you ask me who's the best offensive player, I'm going to go Andrew Luck. He's just been sensational offensively. But the question is most valuable player. And though Peyton Manning's looked pretty good, I mean, 3,000. It's hard to argue 3,737 yards passing, 36 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, only 3 fumbles. There's one guy, and it's no bias here, who separated himself from the pack in the win over Tom Brady, and that's Aaron Rodgers. The efficiency with which he's playing are numbers that we haven't seen before. I mean, you look at his numbers and say, oh, well, why isn't he top 5 in passing yards? One of the big reasons is there have been about 4 or 5 games in which Rodgers hasn't played the fourth quarter. The game against the Eagles, the game against the Bears, the game against the Vikings. They just blow teams out. And the game against the Panthers as well. where he hasn't had to finish out the game. The guy has only thrown 3 interceptions on the year. That is so terrific. Not to mention the fact that he is completing 66% of his passes. It is sensational. And before we continue, we have a caller on the line. What's your name and what do you want to talk about?
What's up, Noah? It's Nick.
What's up, Nick? What do you want to talk about?
Let's talk about that NFL playoff picture.
Okay, what about the NFL playoff picture?
Well, I was just thinking, what are your thoughts on the Cardinals? And do you think that they actually make it, or do you think they fall out?
Blake, you want to start?
Yeah, so right now the Cardinals are a team in which you look at their final 3 games. I was saying about this earlier. I really think that they're going to finish either 10-6 or 11-5, and if that were to be the case, I see them getting into the playoffs by the skin of their teeth, but not winning that division. And I think them without home field advantage in the playoffs will be a very, very difficult task with the quarterbacks such as Drew Stanton. Noah, what do you think?
Yeah, I think they're going to make it, and I think they go 11-5. I think they lose the game against Seattle, and I think that really, really hurts them and probably gives them not home field advantage. And the lack of home field advantage at the end of the day is detrimental, especially for a team that hasn't played quite at the same level on the road. We'll see how it goes. Anything else you want to talk about?
Talk about the Seahawks resurgence, but I know this will make Noah happy. How just the Packers are so great this year.
Okay, well, I'll start with this. Look, the thing about Green Bay is in past years, their defense has probably been one of the most depressing things you can possibly watch. This year, they lead the league in turnover differential, forcing turnovers on every team, and that has given them extra possessions, and the more times Aaron Rodgers has the ball, the more chances you have to score. New England did a great job stopping them in the red zone, but when you can't put points up, you will not defeat the Green Bay Packers because the Packers convert. They will get points every drive, be it a field goal or a touchdown.
Well, yeah, Aaron Rodgers is the best player in the NFL, no question. So
Yeah.
it really depresses me to say that.
Yeah. I mean, look, the guy, it's tough to go up against a quarterback like him because he moves outside the pocket and you think, oh, most quarterbacks, they move outside the pocket, you've got them there. No, he can complete the pass there. And it seems like every time you have him, you don't, and he'll find the open man. It's just so difficult, even for the best defenses, to match up against that, especially when he has home field advantage at Lambeau Field.
Yeah. Well, with that being said, before we say goodbye to Nick, the Vikings look good this season. I mean, they're not a playoff team yet, but I think they have a bright future. I mean, no matter what they do with Adrian Peterson, to go 6-7 right now with all the troubles they've had at running back, you have to give them some credit, and they've really looked good the past 2 games versus inferior opponents. The problem has just been winning on the road versus good teams.
Yeah.
I agree with you. Today, Teddy Bridgewater set a team record for highest completion rate in history. So that's always nice to see.
Yeah, I've been relatively impressed with Teddy Bridgewater. I think there were some points where you can tell that this guy still has a long way to go, but they definitely got a great pick with Bridgewater, deciding to take Anthony Barr over him and then trade up. I mean, Barr's played very well, winning you the game essentially a couple of weeks back. So I've been impressed with the Vikings drafting. I think they've made a couple of good moves.
Jared McKinnon, another guy, rookie.
Yeah. I've been impressed.
Well, one final question. What are your two opinions? Who do you think makes it to the Super Bowl in Arizona?
The Super Bowl. Blake, do you want to start?
Yeah, right now I really like Green Bay from the NFC, and then I like the Patriots. Tom Brady, I think he gives it one final hurrah, and he gets to the Super Bowl. Did he ask who wins, or did he ask who gets there?
He asked who gets there, but why not who wins also?
I say Patriots in the rematch get the victory at a neutral site. It's very, very tough to win in Lambeau, and I think Tom Brady gets his final Super Bowl. Finally, that game that he's not going to play the Giants, not going to lose to Eli Manning, and I think he finally gets his last Super Bowl and he comes close to retirement afterwards. Same with Belichick.
Yeah, I've got the Packers as well from the NFC. However, I have the Broncos. I think they win their rematch with the Patriots. That's the revenge factor. I think Peyton Manning has been overlooked, and I think when it gets down to playoff time, even though he hasn't had the greatest playoff record, I guess you could say, he proved last year that he can win in the playoffs. I think the Broncos play the Packers, and once again, a great Broncos-Packers Super Bowl. Last time it was Elway versus Favre. This time it is Manning versus Rodgers. Last time it was Elway trying to go for his last hurrah versus Brett Favre, who was still in his heyday, and I think it's that again. Last time the Broncos win, I think the Broncos win again. I think Peyton Manning takes home a Super Bowl, like I said in preseason, and I think he retires. So that's about it. Thanks, Nick, for calling in. Call in anytime.
Yeah, have a good night.
You too.
Okay, well now I think we're good with the NFL. We're going to take our first commercial break here on the Blake and Noah Show. Already one caller in. Next up is going to be some college football. Be sure to tune in and stick with us tonight. Number to call in one more time for you is 224-563-8444. We'll be right back on the Blake and Noah Show.
Kicking it. What are we kicking? A soccer ball. That's right, Infinity Sports Network now has its very own soccer show. Hosted by none other than Jake Leiker, Byron Tollefson, and Noah Tabor. We bring you all the latest news on and off the pitch in the soccer world, whether it be the international or club level. Like us on Facebook at Kicking It. And don't forget to tune in once a week on Spreaker.com/Infinity Sports Network. Listen to us there.
Welcome back in to Blake and Noah LA2 Chicago Ep.5. Sorry for the little gap there at the end without a commercial break. Or without a commercial. We did have a commercial, of course, going, but a couple of seconds there in the gap. We did have a caller calling in a bunch of times just a few minutes ago, but of course Nick was on the line. So we probably are expecting a caller within the next few minutes. But during that time, of course, we can talk. Let's finish up. Let's just quickly, because we want to move on, of course, to college football. We were going to give our MVP pick, so let's just, briefly say it. I'm going to go with Aaron Rodgers. The guy's been phenomenal. So that's my pick.
That J.J. Watt is well deserving of the MVP award. The amount of touchdowns he scored as a defensive player, also playing some tight end, is just unbelievable. You have to give all the credit. I think most valuable player is J.J. Watt. Best offensive player, no doubt, Aaron Rodgers, but got to go with J.J. Watt.
Okay, well, we have our caller in who has been waiting patiently. What's your name and what do you want to talk about?
This is Bradley, and I just wanted to know your guys' opinion on the LA Galaxy winning the MLS Cup and Landon Donovan's last game.
Well, this is perfect. This covers one of our topics for today. Landon Donovan, he's playing his last game. It's a bit emotional for all of U.S. soccer fans. It's a big day, so we'll start with you, Blake. What do you think of his final game, and what is your favorite memory? What will you miss? Blake?
Oh, you're talking to me?
Yes.
Sorry, I thought you were waiting for the caller there. My bad. What do I think? I think he is going to go down as the greatest player of all time in U.S. soccer history. He really built the game in our country. We talk about America being a country in which soccer is growing. You've got to give all the credit in the world to Landon Donovan, a guy in which has scored the most goals all time for the U.S. team. He put them on the map. He got them into the knockout stages in the 2010 World Cup in South Africa. That's the best memory I'm going to keep of him. You remember in 2002, that U.S. team that made the quarterfinals? That was because Landon Donovan, a young star coming out of the U21 team, kind of led that team to far in new heights in the World Cup. Greatest player by far in American soccer history.